It's spring, and you're standing in the garden center, and you want roses. You've always wanted roses, a whole row along the fence or climbing up by the porch the way the old places had them. So you pick up a nice one in its pot and turn over the little tag to see the price. $20, $25, some of them, for one bush. And you do the math right there in the aisle. To line that fence, you'd need 8, 10. That's $200 more. So you set it back down, and maybe you buy the one, and carry your one rose home, and your dream of a yard full of them stays a dream for another year. But here's what nobody in that garden center is going to tell you. That rose in your hand, and every rose already in your yard, and every rose on your neighbor's fence you've admired, could be turned into 10 new bushes for free. Not bought, made. From a snip of stem no longer than your hand, a clove of garlic, and a potato. You've been paying $20 for what a cutting and a potato would give you for nothing. I want you to stop and think about this for a second. A rose doesn't have to come from a store. It never did. A rose comes from a rose, from a little cutting, a snip off a stem, coaxed to grow roots of its own and become a whole new plant, just like its mother. Folks have made new roses this way as long as there have been roses in gardens. One bush you love can become a dozen. A rose your mother grew can go on growing in your daughter's yard and her daughter's after that, and it costs nothing but a little care and a potato. There was a time every farm had its roses, and not one of them came bought. A bride carried a start of her mother's rose to her new home. A neighbor admired yours over the fence, and you snipped her a piece to root. That's how the old roses traveled, hand to hand, garden to garden, a living gift passed down and around, never a dollar changing hands. Folks called them passalong roses, and some of the loveliest old roses still growing got that way, carried down the years on nothing but cuttings and kindness. Rebecca's roses by our porch came as a start from her mother's bush. That knowing that you can make 10 roses from one got lost when folks started buying plants in pots instead of sharing starts. But you can learn it in the next few minutes. Let me tell you who I am. My name is Jacob Miller. I'm an Amish farmer out in the Holmes County settlement here in Ohio, and my wife is Rebecca. Now let me be honest with you right up front, the way I always am. Taking a cutting to make a new rose is old as gardens themselves. That part Rebecca and I know well, and her mother before her. The little trick with the potato is a newer twist on it, and I'll not pretend it came down from my grandmother. But the heart of the thing, turning one rose you love into many for free and having a start to give to everyone you care about, that's pure old thrift, the wasting nothing I was raised on. So let me show it to you honest, the way it's done. Before we get into it, if you like learning the old ways of doing things, do 2 small things for me. Tap that like button down there. It helps this little channel more than you'd ever guess. And subscribe so you can keep learning right alongside Rebecca and me. That's all I'll ask. Now, let's grow some roses. Here's everything I'll show you, in order. First, taking your cutting, the most important of all. Then cleaning the cut with garlic. Then a simple homemade tonic to soak it in. Then setting it into the potato. Then planting it in sand. Then covering it to keep it damp. And last, potting up your rooted rose, and how one bush becomes a whole yard of them. Do these few simple things, and you'll turn one rose into a dozen, a whole fence, a whole yard of them, for the price of a potato. And you'll have a start of your favorite rose to hand to every daughter, neighbor, and friend you've got. So let's get into it. Everything that follows depends on starting with a good one. Go to a rose you love, your own, or ask a neighbor for a snip. Folks are almost always glad to share. Pick a stem that's healthy and firm, not a soft new shoot, not an old woody cane, but somewhere between, about the thickness of a pencil. Cut a piece about 6 inches long, the length of your hand. If you can, cut just below where a leaf joins the stem, because that joint, that little knuckle, is where the roots most want to come from. Then strip all the leaves from the lower part of your cutting, the part going down into the sand. Leave just a couple of small leaves at the very top. Here's why. Any leaf left down below would only rot in the damp or pull water the rootless cutting can't yet spare. A bare lower stem is what you want, clean and ready to make roots. That little 6-inch snip is the whole beginning of a brand new rose bush. Now, the moment you cut that stem, you've made an open wound, and like any wound, it can turn bad. The two things that kill a cutting before it ever roots are rot and mold, the bacteria and fungus that creep into that fresh cut end in the damp. And we're about to keep this cutting warm and damp a good while, just what those troubles love. So we guard against them the old way with garlic. Take a clove of garlic, cut it in two, and rub the cut face right over the cut end of your rose stem so the juice works into the wound. Garlic is nature's own guard against rot and mold. Country folk have used it against such things longer than anyone can say. It keeps the bad bugs off that open cut while it heals over and gets down to the business of rooting. A simple thing, a clove of garlic, but it saves many a cutting that would otherwise have rotted before it started. Before it goes in the sand, we'll give the cutting a little soak in a homemade tonic. Nothing you can't find in your kitchen. Take the peelings from a potato. We'll use the rest in a minute, so nothing's wasted, and drop them in a cup. Add a clove of garlic, chopped fine. Add a couple of spoonfuls of plain rice, and pour over it all about 1.5 cups of water. Give it a good stir and let it sit to steep. Now, what's all that for? It's a gentle feeding tonic. The potato peel and the rice give up their starch and goodness into the water, the very stuff that feeds young roots as they form. And the garlic again guards against rot. Set the base of your cutting in that tonic and let it soak about 5 minutes so it drinks some in. Then strain it through a cloth and keep the liquid. We'll water the sand with it directly. Nothing thrown away, and the cutting well fed before it starts. Now here's the trick the title promised you, the potato itself. And I'll be honest about it, as always. This is the newer part, and it's no magic bean. But here's the sense in it. Take that potato you peeled, a firm, sound one, and cut a good chunk of it. In the middle of that chunk, poke a hole deep enough to hold the base of your cutting snug. Then push the bottom inch or so of your cutting right down into that hole. What's the potato doing there? Two simple things. First, it holds a little pocket of moisture right against the cut end, so the cutting never dries out where it counts. Second, as the potato slowly breaks down, it gives up a bit of its starch and nutrients. A steady little meal to keep the cutting alive and strong while it works on roots. It's not doing the rooting for you, the cutting does that itself. The potato just gives it a moist, well-fed bed to do it in. And that's a help, not a hindrance. With your cutting seated in its potato, it's time to pot the whole thing up. And what we pot it in is plain sand. River sand, the loose, clean kind, is the old gardener's bed for striking cuttings, and for good reason. It's loose and open, so tender new roots push through easily without fighting hard-packed dirt. And it holds moisture without staying soggy, and soggy is what rots a cutting. Good clean sand is just damp enough, never drowning. So take a cup, a plastic cup does fine, and fill it about 2/3 up with river sand. Set your potato, with the cutting standing up out of it, down into the sand. Then pour more sand around it, filling the cup and holding everything firm and upright. Now take that strained tonic you saved and pour it over the sand to moisten it all through, feeding and watering in one go. Damp, not flooded, just wet clean through like a wrung-out cloth. Here's a step you must not skip because this is what saves your cutting through the hardest stretch. Think on it. Your cutting has no roots yet, which means it can't drink. Left out in the open air, it would dry up and wither before it ever grew a single root. So we keep the air around it damp instead and make it a little greenhouse. Take a clear plastic bag and pull it right over the whole cup, cutting and all. Then gather it underneath and seal it up. A bit of tape wound round the bottom does it, closed in tight. Now the moisture can't escape. It rises off the damp sand, clings inside the bag, and drips back down. And the air in there stays warm and wet and close, just the way a rootless cutting needs. Then set the whole thing somewhere cool and out of the direct sun. This part matters. For all it needs warmth and damp, direct sun on that closed bag would cook the cutting alive inside like a little oven. Cool shade, damp air, and left alone. That's the ticket. Now you wait and let it work, and it doesn't take long. In about 5 days to a week down in that sand, your cutting will be growing its first roots. Give it a little longer to root out well, and when you tip it out and see healthy white roots reaching toward the bottom of the cup, then you know it's taken and ready for a home of its own. So pot it up. Move it gently into a bigger pot of good light-growing soil. Some fine compost with a bit of sand mixed through does beautifully, loose and rich for the young roots to spread into. Settle your new little rose in, and keep it a while yet somewhere cool and out of the hard sun, so it can get over the move and find its feet before you bring it into brighter days. And here's the wonder of it. That's one rose made from a snip and a potato. But there's nothing stopping you doing 10 at once, or 20. One bush you love becomes a whole hedge of them. A start of your favorite goes to your daughter, your neighbor, your friend. That's the circle. One rose, shared out and multiplied for the price of a few potatoes. Let me run it back for you, quick and plain. First, take a good cutting. A firm stem about 6 inches long, cut below a leaf joint, the lower leaves stripped off. Then rub the cut end with garlic to guard it from rot. Then soak it a few minutes in a homemade tonic of potato peel, garlic, and rice steeped in water, and save the strained liquid. Then poke a hole in a chunk of potato and seat the cutting in it for a moist, fed bed. Then plant the whole thing in a cup of loose river sand and water it with your saved tonic. Then cover it with a plastic bag, sealed tight, and set it somewhere cool and out of the sun. And last, in a week or so, when the white roots show, pot it up into good light soil. And do it again and again, till you've all the roses you could want. That's the whole of it. And let me tell you what that gives you. A whole fence lined with roses, reds and pinks and whites, nodding in the summer sun. Every last one grown from a single bush and a sack of potatoes, for pennies. You walk out of a morning, and there they are. More roses than you ever thought you'd own. And not one cost what that first one did in the store. And better still, there's a start of Rebecca's mother's rose, the one by our porch, now blooming in more than one yard, passed on, living, going forward. That's what this does. It takes something you love and lets you have more of it and share it without end. A rose is a fine thing. A rose you can multiply and give away is finer still. Now let me tell you why hardly anybody does this anymore. There's no money in it. Not for the folks selling roses anyhow. The garden center wants to sell you a potted rose for $20, and another the next spring, and another. There's no profit for them in teaching you that a snip off a bush you already have, stuck in a potato, would give you all the roses you want for free, so nobody teaches it. And the older, sweeter thing underneath, the passing of starts hand to hand, the sharing of a beloved rose down through a family and over a fence, got quietly forgotten too, when folks stopped growing their own and started only buying. A rose became a thing you purchase instead of a gift you grow and give. And here's the plain math of it. A rose bush at the garden center runs you $25. To line a fence, you might want 10. That's $200 and more. Gone. But a cutting off a bush costs you nothing. A potato costs pennies. A cup of sand costs less. And from that handful of near nothing, you can root as many roses as you've cuttings to take. 10, 20, a whole yard of them. Everyone free. There's no cheaper way to fill a garden with roses anywhere on this earth. A sack of potatoes against $200, and the potatoes win every time. So you don't need to pay a fortune for roses, and you surely don't need to settle for just the one. Every rose you love and every rose you pass is a dozen more roses waiting to happen. You've only to take the cutting and give it a little care. Now, the title talks of rapid rooting and growing roses and potatoes. And I'll be honest with you, the way I always am. The potato's a real help. It keeps your cutting moist and fed while it roots. But it's no magic bean, and I'll not pretend it is. The cutting does the real rooting itself. The potato just gives it a good bed to do it in. And rapid is fair enough. The roots do start in a week or so. But hear me. What you'll have then is a rooted start, not a blooming bush. A rose still needs its season or two of growing on to come into its full glory. What the potato and the cutting give you, quick and cheap, is the start of that rose. The growing, as always, takes the time it takes. So here's what I want you to do this week. Go find a rose you love, one of your own, or knock on a neighbor's door and ask for a snip. I've rarely known anyone to say no. Cut yourself a piece about the length of your hand, strip the lower leaves, and rub the end with a bit of garlic. Grab a potato from the kitchen and a cup of sand, and start just one, the way I showed you. That's all it takes to begin. Get one going this week, and by this time next month, you may well have a rooted rose of your very own, and the itch to make 10 more. Because here's what happens. The little ones love this one. There's a real magic to a child in poking a rose stem into a potato and, weeks later, pulling it up to find white roots where there were none. Let them start their own and check it and pot it up. And there's a deeper thing they'll learn here too, beyond the roots. When you hand your daughter a start of the rose that grew by her grandmother's door, you're handing her something living that ties her back to her people. A rose with a story, going forward. That's how the knowing comes back and how the roses do too. Not from a book nor a store, but one cutting at a time. Now I'd love to hear from you. Tell me down in the comments. What rose would you multiply first if you could have 10 of it? And whose rose do you wish you had a start of? Your mother's, a grandmother's, one you remember from a garden long ago. And tell me your favorite color of rose. Rebecca's partial to the deep red ones by our porch. If your family had a trick for rooting cuttings or keeping roses, share it down there. Those old ways slip away when nobody writes them down, and I read every one. So the next time you pass a rose in bloom, yours, or a neighbor's, or one nodding over an old fence, look at it a moment and see it for what it truly is. That's not just one rose. That's 100 roses, waiting in a single stem, if you know the quiet way of coaxing them out. A rose kept to yourself blooms in one garden. A rose you learn to multiply and give away blooms in a dozen, and goes on blooming long after you're gone. Take the cutting. Share the start. Grow more beauty than you need, and give the overflow to the people you love.